You're going to enjoy this week's episode. We had Todd Holtz with TEXO Association on, and we talked about his nearly 30-year journey through safety, the last 7.5 being in construction with TEXO. Just a humble dude with a ton of wisdom. There's also a multiple choice question for Stewie to answer since he couldn't join us this week. Buckle up, learn a few nuggets, grab your journal. It's time to learn. What's up, Mountain Movers? Welcome back to the 1720 podcast. I'm honored to be here with Todd Holtz today. He is the Vice President of Operations for TEXO, the Construction Association. And we're going to talk about all things construction, association relations, and predominantly safety. But Stewie can't be here today, so I want to start it with a multiple choice question. Why didn't Stewie make it today? Is it A, because he dislikes you? B, he dislikes safety? C, he dislikes the Cowboys, or D, all of the above?
Oh, you got to go all the above. Yeah, even before you got to the end, hopefully there's an all the above here.
You were waiting for the Scantron, option D. This is going to be.
Absolutely.
And he will definitely chime in next week and say E, none of the above. He just got caught up in some meetings today, so Stewie, we miss you, but we will keep on trucking without him. But I do know for a fact, Todd, that you're a huge Cowboys fan. So
True.
we're just about to start preseason. I'm going to put you on the spot here. What are you calling the record this year?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, the first thing is, can everybody stay healthy? And, I try not to do this, but I have been kind of sneaking a look at training camp.
Yeah.
And all they keep showing is how many interceptions that Dak's already throwing.
No way.
Yeah. And so, it's training camp, and you can't make any predictions off of what's going on there. But the whole Zach Martin holdout going on, and just things that I'm seeing in training camp, aren't necessarily encouraging things. But I do feel like once we get going, we've got a strong team, and we definitely have a chance to get into the playoffs. But every year we get into the playoffs, and then somehow we, figure out a way to tank.
Yeah. So you're confident in the regular season.
Yeah.
So you think, what, 11-6, 12-5?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I think the Bears can do it. I think the Bears are 11-6 team now. I think so. And no Rodgers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and in our division, I'm really concerned about the Eagles again.
Should be.
Yeah, very concerned. And then if we, fast forward to next season, with the new ownership with the Commanders or the Washington football team, whatever you want to call them, I think they're going to infuse some new money in there, some new management, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, in the next few years. So
I agree. I know I learned when I moved here from Chicago in 2010 that this is more of a college sports town, and I didn't really follow college sports. I'm all pro teams from Chicago. And so this is my favorite time of year where we're about to go with NFL season kicking off. Bears are my team, unfortunately. But Justin Fields, I forget that number one receiver they just picked up. There was news that those two are bonding like crazy. And I'm like, what it does, Todd, is it suckers me into buying NFL Sunday day ticket. Oh, yeah. And then 2 weeks in, I'm like, shouldn't have done that.
What did I do this for?
Yeah.
Well, are you fantasy sports at all?
No, I don't do that.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I mean, it's worth having the Sunday ticket if if you're into fantasy sports. You watch your team, and then you get to watch the other players.
Yeah.
So
you got something to root for up and down the board.
Yeah. That makes it a little bit. Well, it certainly takes up your time on Sundays.
Yeah.
And Thursday and Monday.
Oh, it's almost every day of the week now.
Yeah.
Well, go Cowboys, go Bears, unless if they're facing each other, then the Cowboys are dead to me. But that is not the cause for our conversation. We're going to dive into safety, but I think you've been with TEXO for 7.5-ish years now.
Yeah. Yep. Started with TEXO in April of 2016.
And so what is your background prior to TEXO?
Safety has been, part of, it's my entire career. If I go back 27, 28 years now, in some capacity of or some discipline, as I call it, of safety. I started with a company called Safety Clean in Denton, and started just working in the plant there. It was a hazardous waste facility, disposal facility, and just started working in the plant there. And one day I was going to break, and there was a posting on the wall for a safety trainer. And I didn't know anything about safety at the time, but I knew I didn't want to work in the plant anymore. So I went ahead and applied for it, as did 72 other people in the plant.
Ooh.
And I guess I just interviewed well and got the job. And I told the guy in the beginning, I don't know anything about safety, but if you teach me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And so they gave me a great opportunity, and they actually flew me to Chicago once a month. Because at the time, Safety Clean's headquarters was in Elgin.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I flew into Chicago once a month for almost a year. And Safety Clean at the time had a Safety Clean Academy or university. So, you could go up there and learn about safety or different chemicals or disposal methods, things of that nature. And so they sent me up there and sent me through a lot of schools, and I came back down. So when you were an employee at Safety Clean, when you first start, according to federal regulations, you have to have 24 hours of hazardous waste, hazardous materials, and safety training before you can even go into the plant.
Yeah.
And it was very hard work. It was not climate controlled. We were literally digging out drums of hazardous waste with a garden hoe in a non-climate controlled building. And so I only say that because there was a lot of turnover. And because there was a lot of turnover and everybody that came in the plant had to have 3 days of training,
It was nonstop.
I was training, every week.
Right.
And, was really glad to have a week where I didn't have to talk.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was but that's where I kind of cut my teeth on. And our safety manager back in I don't know, I'd been there for a couple of years, and he moved on. And so I became safety manager and was there until a few months after 9/11, actually. And when 9/11 affected us dramatically with respect to security measures, as you imagine, it was a hazardous waste facility. So, we really had to up our security. Cost the company a lot of money. A few of our plants throughout the country had closed down. So they were starting to do some things that made me feel like there might be a reduction in force at some point.
Yeah.
So I jumped over I literally opened a paper up one day. Yeah, I opened up a newspaper.
Yeah.
Okay, classifieds.
What's that?
Yeah, I know. And saw that the city of Denton was looking for a safety manager. So I interviewed for that position and went over there and was their safety manager for about 5 years, which was really, really different in just the application of safety standards, and the hazards that existed were totally different than what I would see in a chemical plant. So did that for a little while, sold, moved on, and got on this, what I call the sales side of safety, and started selling portable gas detection instruments, devices that you use to test the air to go into confined spaces. The oil field uses them a lot. There's all kinds of different applications. So did that for a while.
And that's a good way to get into a sales role if you have the safety background or whatever the operations widget is before you go sell it, because you know a thing or two over the average bearer that's just trying to sell. Like, you understand the importance of the product, what it can do, how it can prevent injury and escalation, all that sort of stuff. Did you see that as like kind of a superpower in that role?
Yeah, I did. And it took my boss to tell me that, hey, you have this superpower, if you will.
Yeah.
But then I realized, I already speak the language of a safety manager. So I kind of, I know what their challenges are and what they want, what they need in as far as instruments are concerned. So it was pretty natural for me to sit down with a potential customer, and say, hey, here's what I have to offer. I, I understand you have these challenges, and here are the products that will, help you. So it was a pretty easy transition for me.
Yeah, and I think that's the power of mentorship. So I have something
Hmm.
similar. When I moved here from Chicago, I was a project manager, and my boss wanted me to become a business development guy, so salesman, and all just the cheesy sales role. Like I just disliked them, like
Yeah.
because I never was told the truth. It was like, hey, I'm in the neighborhood, and I just figured I'd stop by. It's like, no, I'm running this job. Just tell me that you want to talk about that. And so I kind of wanted to reject that opportunity that ultimately brought me to Texas. But same thing, my boss was also my mentor. He's like, Kev, you don't need to be a salesman to be a salesman. Go be you, use your experience,
Yeah.
and just talk to people. And there's so much wisdom in that, that you can use that experience and the character traits. And I want to go back to that first position at Safety Clean. Did
Mhm.
you ever get feedback from anybody why you got picked out of 71 other people and you were the one? Did they ever say why? Like you knew you were up against that many people and you're like, why me?
Uh, I always thought, why me? After, especially, I got a month or two into this thing, and not only was I doing a lot of training, but I was also conducting all of our safety committee meetings, and plant wide safety meetings that we would have. And I would stand up there and look over a crowd of 300 guys, a lot of which, or a lot of whom had been in the plant for 15, 20 years. And it was clear they knew a heck of a lot more than I did about, what they were doing. And so, uh, it did create a lot of, conversation with myself as I'm talking. Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I'm not qualified to do this. How in the world did I get this job?
Yeah.
And the only answer I really ever got, or at least that I remember, was that I just interviewed well, and they just felt like that I had the potential. I didn't have, any, as I said before, I didn't have any safety background.
Yeah.
I mean, when I came to work for Safety Clean, the job before that, I was a keg driver for Budweiser.
Yeah.
And so, and I ran a,
Super qualified.
I ran a tow truck. I worked at a gas station. So, I mean,
Yeah.
as I was very, very green as someone in trying to get into safety. It was green.
But you get it now. You and I had a conversation earlier this morning to kind of full circle that. Now that you're in the position of hiring others with or without experience, just sometimes like that person comes in, you've interviewed other candidates, you're like, nope, nope, nope. And then this person comes in, you're like, I like that
Yeah,
character, contagious energy, do the right thing, deliver awesome, some of the core values of tech. So you could just like start seeing in that person. You're like, oh, I'll teach you the widget. I'll teach you the ways of the construction association.
yeah, yeah. It is, and I kind of catch myself sometimes if I'm interviewing for a position, or helping some of our other staff uh, try to decide on a candidate. I have to catch myself sometimes, because I'm like, wait a minute, did I give everybody else enough, time, or enough consideration? But, there's always this, well, not always, but in this particular situation, there was this one that was really stood out.
Mm-hmm.
And, just, I don't want to consider anyone else. I know what I have here, or I think I do. And, I mean, it might take a year for me to, for sure, confirm that.
Yep.
But it definitely, the more experience you have, the more, you get 30 seconds in with somebody, and you're like, okay, this is looking pretty good.
Yeah. I had a boss in my career, like when I'd get excited about a new hire, say every new broom sweeps well, like he had the patience game on his side. And boy, is that an accurate statement, because
Oh
sometimes
man.
after those 60 days, you're like, who is this person?
Yeah.
We just did a 180. What happened?
Yeah. You totally stole a line from my boss, that when I first got out of high school, I really had no idea what I was going to do. I was not on the college path. I had no vocation. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I went to work for this gas station. And that's funny you mentioned that. 2 weeks in, the manager of the gas station had hired me, but he wasn't ever around much. But the owner of the station, who I came to know very, very well, his name was Robert, and Robert didn't talk to me for about 2 weeks. And I would pass him in our little store, or I'd be in the bay doing an oil change or something like that, and he just would never talk to me. So finally, about 2 weeks in, I went into his office and I said, "Hey, um, we really haven't talked much. I mean, just am I doing okay?" And he just looked up and he said, "Son, new broom sweeps good." And I mean, it was just, I had no idea what the heck he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I just looked at him and he just stared at me and he said, "You go think about that."
Yep.
And I thought, man, I'm going to get fired today. And I don't even know why. I mean, he just looked at me with just these steely eyes.
Yeah.
And I did think about it.
Yeah.
And it started to make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
He's been around the block. He's seen some turnover. He's, there's a lot of wisdom in that one
And
sentence.
there really is. There
And it-
really is. And I've never forgotten that.
And it can wake somebody up. Like for me at a younger age, that'd be ego. I'd be like, oh, okay. You think I'm a new broom? Wait till you see me as an old broom. I'm going to be better than a new broom.
Yeah.
Or you like let doubt drive you or fear or whatever the case may be. But, you push through the new broom status
Yeah. Yeah.
overall.
And then, now it's kind of on the other side, where I'm kind of thinking, new broom sweeps good. And the more, I don't know, turnover, I guess you experience throughout your career, you have to intentionally not be a cynic.
Yeah.
And just understand that, new broom sweeps good, and then we might have to give this person a little bit more time to kind of settle in and figure it out. I mean, especially here at TEXO, I mean, I've always told anybody that comes in new here, look, don't be so hard on yourself. It's going to take you a good year to figure out all of the things that we do here for our members, and then internally, it's just I have that mind map poster in my office, and it just kind of splinters out from this core.
Yeah.
And it tries to explain all of the different facets and all the different things that TEXO does. And for a new person coming in, you can't explain everything that you're going to be exposed to, be asked to do, and be involved in. There's no way you can explain all that.
No, and you got to get deep in it too. So like for those that don't know what TEXO is, it's the construction association that combines ABC and AGC. So construction companies become members of this association. Our podcast studio is actually inside the TEXO building. I'm fully entrenched in all things TEXO, and there are still layers of the onion that I continue to figure out. And you're referencing that Jason Weeks huge mind map and thing that he rolled out last year at our board of directors retreat. But it's eye-popping on what's offered. And so when you started at TEXO, it was a safety position that now has morphed into overall operations. But I always see you as somebody that knows safety really well, and it's important in our industry. It's important in our lives. And so since we started down the TEXO path, let's talk about the TEXO specific safety offering, and then we'll get into construction industry trends.
Yeah. Yep.
So like things I learned over time, like you become a TEXO member, part of that offering is safety inspections on your sites and your manufacturing warehouse that are part of your membership. But what else? Like what else are we doing for our members as TEXO from a safety standpoint?
Yeah. So I think TEXO, if you go back, way before I got here, obviously TEXO, and then, before that it was Coin, and before that was AGC of Dallas. I mean, they've had some sort of safety role for a long, long time. And, I'll explain, kind of talk about what we do now, but it's really been different. In the past, TEXO might have a safety representative on staff that would just merely help with maybe safety manual development. They would certainly be out on job sites and help to identify hazards, and help supervisors walk a job site and recognize, if OSHA were to, for example, to be on the job site, what would they, what are some things that are sticking out that they would just immediately recognize, and just also help consult with, hey, we're going to have to dig a trench here. Can you help me, figure out how we're going to protect the workers that are going to enter this trench? So that type of consulting work. And then back in 2015, there was a group of TEXO members who started Safety First.
Yeah.
And so that's really kind of, it's my understanding, that's really kind of how TEXO really got into doing a lot of training for its members, and then ultimately for even non-members was Safety First. And so the idea behind that was there was a lot of general contractors that were doing a safety orientation or safety training for new employees, new people on their job, but there wasn't a consistent standard or consistent criteria. It was all over the map. I mean, one contractor said, look, I make the guy watch a couple of videos, and I tell him to sign this piece of paper and grab a hard hat on your way out. And that was his safety orientation. Did you watch the video? Yeah. Okay, well, good. You're good to go. So it ran the gamut from there all the way to someone saying, well, I want them to go through 16 hours of training before they even go on the job site. So it was very different. And so the idea was TEXO would create this curriculum and this class called TEXO Safety First that would be recognized by all general contractors, especially, TEXO members. They would recognize that logo and they would know, oh, okay, this is the program that was designed by safety professionals specifically for commercial construction. And I know that they have had, if I see them wearing that badge and that hard hat sticker, I know they've gone through this particular level of training.
Yeah.
And it was, it is still recognized as, at the very least, a very basic, good orientation or training to get someone started on a job site to be able to recognize hazards, from slips, trips, and falls to electrical hazards, fall hazards, pretty much a very basic understanding of a lot of those disciplines.
And it's so Safety First kicked off. It was an 8-hour training. Did it always have the 2-hour come back the next day to get your OSHA 10? So you kill two birds with one stone?
Yeah, great question. I failed to mention that when they designed it, they were smart enough to realize or to know, hey, if we model this after an OSHA 10, then we can build all that curriculum in on the majority of it in on the first day, and then ask the students to come back. We really like for them to come back the day after, so that the record keeping is a little bit more clean.
Yeah. But
they would have 6 months to come back and complete the 2.5 hours that would complete the 10-hour, the OSHA 10. And so the student would walk away with not only a TEXO Safety First badge and hard hat sticker, but an OSHA 10 card as well, which was, there were some general contractors that really didn't care anything about having an OSHA 10. They just wanted them to have the training, TEXO training. And then there were other contractors that wanted both. And, we don't let anybody on our site unless they have at least an OSHA 10.
Yeah.
So it did kill two birds with one stone. That's the way we continue to do it. It's a little bit different now. We do offer a TEXO Safety First class on its own. And if you want to come back or if you want to come do an OSHA 10 class, we offer that as well. So, getting back to kind of what we do, I mean, that's a big part of it is TEXO Safety First.
Yeah, before we spin out of that one, I do want to say, when I was an individual that was leading no one, and I took my OSHA 10 in Chicago, it was online, and there's plenty of benefits of the virtual side of things. But I equate that OSHA 10 to driving school. When you get a speeding ticket and you take online driving school, I'm just clicking the next arrow as I'm watching TV, watching sports, watching the Cowboys lose, whatever the case may be. Like, I didn't care because it was about me.
Yeah.
But then now that I'm leading people and I have groups that I'm trying to keep safe, I want them in a physical class to sit down, get the hours in, and it's not just checking a box. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that. So for TEXO, they offer it in English and Spanish, so there's classes individually for each, but it's in person.
And it's hands-on.
That's an important element. We're trying to get people back home the same way they came every single day. And that is really, I did not walk the talk early in my career. I was checking the box. I don't want to check the box when it comes to safety when I'm leading people and organizations now.
Yeah, it's interesting to sit through a class like that and you put some people in a circle and you maybe give them a lanyard, fall protection lanyard, and then another guy's holding the actual harness, and then another guy might be holding a retractable. And so you're just walking through, this is not just a video or a lecture or whatever. They're standing there and they're holding this equipment and we're talking about how to inspect it. And it's funny, you see some students and, you kind of go around the circle, you're just like, how's your lanyard? You good with your lanyard? Oh, yeah, it's fine. And you go to the, how's your harness? Oh, yeah, it's fine. Okay, well, I'm going to go back around now, and then I'm going to ask you, would you wear that harness today? Would you wear it?
Yeah.
I know you inspected it and you told me it's good, but is it good enough for you to wear it today and protect you if you fall? And it's amazing how much closer they look at that harness when you ask them that question.
Man, we're trying to save their lives. So
yeah.
Like harness.
They looked back down at it and it was like, oh, well, maybe I should inspect it a little bit more now. And
you think
it kind of brings that awareness.
Like people like me like that actually wouldn't care, right? Like I just want to do the job. And there's a lot of like quote unquote cowboys out there. But this stuff's real. So like the harness, the lanyard, the yo-yo, all that sort of stuff is like for fall protection. And you're learning how to do it on the ground, but you're going to be up on a slab. And I remember not that long ago, call it 5-6 years ago, I got a phone call. The opening comment was, your guy fell off the 7th floor. And so like immediately I'm thinking doom and gloom.
Yep.
This person that communicated with me didn't give me the good news first and kind of left that towards the tail end of the conversation. So I was assuming the worst until the very end. His fall protection activated, horizontal lifeline. He swung no more than like in between the floor he fell on, the one below. And we did a deep root cause analysis at the end of the day, but like, this is going to sound weird. I was proud of them. Like, because that would have been devastating if they weren't paying attention to the harness, the yo-yo, their everything. Like, if something would have been faulty there, that's it for that person. 7 floors up, you're
done.
You are done. And so this is a big deal. So when we sign these people up, you got to think about these things. Why are they putting this equipment on? Why is it so important?
Yeah. So that, to my point earlier, is just, you ask them to inspect it and it's just kind of going through the motions. But then when you put them in the harness, then it's just like, oh, maybe I should take a second look.
You good with that frayed line now?
Deal. Yeah. You good with that?
Yeah.
This looks like it might have been, it's got a little welding slag on it or something like that,
Yeah.
Is it gonna hold you when you fall and there's that impact?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I interrupted you before you moved on from safety first, but I think you were going to talk about all other things that TEXO offers its members and the construction industry at large.
Yeah. So if you're an authorized, there's a specific way you have to say this, an OSHA authorized trainer, which allows you to teach an OSHA 10, then you're also able to do an OSHA 30. So that's the next thing that I would talk about. The OSHA 10, the safety first format is really good for entry level. It's very good for, hey, we're going on to a new job. I could tell you a lot of different companies and projects that had safety first specifically on their site for that. But then if we move on to the OSHA 30, that's really more for kind of a supervisory level. And then even for someone who's coming into as a safety professional, they don't quite have the experience and aren't able to go out and get those credentials yet. but an OSHA 30 is a really good start to try to learn how to read the standards, where to go find things. You get out on a job site and you start talking to a supervisor and you tell him, hey, this is wrong right here. First thing he's going to ask you is why?
Yeah.
Or is it really?
Yeah.
I mean, is that really something I should be concerned about? And you need to be able to go back to that standard and go, well, this is why. And here it is right here.
Yeah. Not just because I said so.
Yeah. Just because, somebody told me it was wrong,
Yeah.
So the OSHA 30, and then we've tried to branch out over the last several years to do more CPR classes. We do a ton of those, medic first aid. We, let's see, probably about 5 years ago, we brought in a train the trainer for us to be able to do work zone traffic control and flagging, which has been really good for us. I mean, we've had tons of people go through those classes.
Air traffic control, as in all the drones flying around and how they're interrupting.
Work zone traffic control.
Oh! I thought you said air traffic control.
No.
I was like, are we talking about drones? Because I think that's a thing.
No, we're talking about traffic control and
flagging.
Yeah, proper flagging. Most people don't know this because I'm a safety nerd. I know this, but there is a specific, procedure and way that you're supposed to work traffic, work zone safety zones and flagging. There's specific procedures.
Totally.
And it drives me crazy when I see people doing it wrong.
Oh, I bet.
But, there's nothing worse than to drive up on a construction zone and there's a flagger there and he has his back turned towards you. I know I'm supposed to slow down and maybe I'm supposed to stop, but he's not seeing me. He's looking in another direction. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah. What if the driver's looking at email or writing emails or doing a TikTok?
Yeah.
Like your back's to him. Eesh.
Yeah. That's a soapbox thing for me.
Oh, yeah. We go off on a 2-hour tangent.
Yeah. I'll get off of that. We've also tried to branch out and do some site specific. Sometimes we'll do toolbox talks. There have been times when we've gone out and, I had a guy call me one time and said, hey, I don't need like a bunch of, really intense training on fall protection, but we're going to be doing some work up here. I have a competent person on site, but I need these 10 guys right here to go through some sort of awareness fall protection training. Learn how to inspect it, what the limitations are, what the applications are, things like that. Can you come out to the site and do this? And oh, by the way, I need it to be in Spanish.
Yeah.
No problem.
It's huge.
Yeah, it is. And so I was so proud that, we could go out and do that kind of stuff. And we still can. I'm talking about in the past tense, but we still do that kind of stuff. We'll cater to you. We'll tailor the training to you, whatever we can do, within our credentials and our capabilities.
Yeah, y'all listen too, right? Not just from safety, but every branch, because you're a servant of the industry and its membership. And if you start picking up trends, we're like, this is the 5th contractor that asked us for the safety XYZ. This needs to become an offering. Now, not every single phone call becomes an offering because of the mind map. You have a million things going on. But if a trend happens, it's like, all right, this is what's coming in the industry. So maybe we talk about that a little bit, what we're seeing construction-wise in the industry.
Yeah, it's a good segue just to talk about the safety committee too, before we get off into the industry part of it. I mean, it's just a good segue to talk about those challenges, those new standards coming out, new trends, things of that nature. Our TEXO Safety Committee is a great forum for our TEXO member safety professionals to get together and, sometimes I use the words plagiarize and steal. But
best practices.
Well, yeah, I mean, safety professionals are experts at plagiarism and stealing ideas, but it really is just sharing.
It's life.
Yeah.
Hey, that looks good. Why reinvent the wheel. Let's try that on.
Yeah. So, I'll just take heat stress because that's the hot topic, no pun intended. But
I think pun was intended. I know you too well, Todd.
Okay. Yeah. My timing wasn't great on that, so I'll work on it. But, we're getting together at the safety committee and talking about there's a standard right now that is in the public comment stage, if you will, for this to become law, a heat stress prevention standard. And so so our safety committee is a great way for all of our professionals to get together and talk about, well, for one thing, how they feel about how the standard is written, and then how to go about making those comments to the ones that are hearing it at the federal level. But then also, what are you doing as a contractor that I'm not doing, and I'm that's benefiting you?
The power of your peers, man.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm going to skip ahead real quick, but it's a really good time to say this. One of the things that you asked me before, when we were going to do this, was where are people missing the mark?
Oh, okay.
And so, I've talked to quite a few people over the last couple of weeks about this heat stress standard, and then just about what's going on in the industry. And there are people missing the mark by just not tapping into the safety committee, not tapping into just resources that TEXO provides. So, if you're a safety professional, or you're in charge of safety for your company and you're a TEXO member and you're not tapping into the safety committee, where we're all sharing these ideas of what's working and what's not, you're missing the mark.
Yeah, and it drives protocols. I'll kind of do a little background. So unfortunately, I've been in construction 20 years now. I don't say that because of construction, but I used to pump up how many years I've been in it. And now that it's 20, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been in construction 20 years, slow down. But 20 years ago, like, my skill saw had a 16 penny nail pinned into the guard so I could cut faster. We had all of our ladders cut in half so we can have more ladders, and it leaned up against the wall. And typically so I used to be a carpenter. When you get to the top, of the gable end of a house, and you're trying to snap that siding in, you're on your tippy toe of the very top rung,
step,
and then you feel that and you're about to go down, and the ladder goes across the siding. And our rule of thumb, this was our safety measure, you had to wait on the ground where you fell so everybody could get off their ladder and laugh at you. Like pulling shards of soffit panel out of my eyeball. My foreman's doing that because I didn't have safety glasses. This is where I stood 20 years ago.
Right.
And there's a dude that we know very well, Jeff Wolfla, that was he lives safety. It's his life. And he does a really good job with it. And he used to serve on the safety committee, if not still. I don't know where his status is today. But I remember this, like, small moments that make a large impact. I was doing something at home, so super safe at work, right? All the protocols and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I was chopping wood in sandals to do some home improvement project, and jokingly sent him a picture of me in flip-flops doing this and saying, hey, safety boy, what do you think about this? And he did not think it was funny.
He didn't think it was funny.
Not at all.
Right.
He shot me back. He goes, Kev, safety is a lifestyle. This isn't an on and off switch. If you want your company to be safer, you need to operate with it full time. That I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And ever since then, when I'm starting to do something around the house, all of a sudden the safety glasses come out, closed toe shoes. Like, he's right. It's a lifestyle. It's not just an on off switch, or we're not going to get it right when it matters.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many times in the 27 or 28 years that I've been around safety, is how many guys show up on Monday and they've gotten hurt over the weekend because of that same thing. It's my job to practice safety when I'm at work. It's something that I have to do, but I don't have to do it. Nobody's going to police me when I go home.
That's right.
And so, I can do whatever I want, but that's not the right mindset.
Wow.
I mean, I had a guy fall off. He was working on his roof on the weekend, and he was carrying a stack of shingles up a ladder, and fell off the ladder and broke his hip.
Yeah.
And, I guess it's not funny, but the interesting part, he was one of my safety guys.
Yeah.
And so he calls me on Sunday evening and says, "Hey, Todd, I'm not going to be able to come to work for a while." "What's going on?" "Well, I'm in the hospital. I broke my hip."
Man.
"How in the world did you do that?" "You don't want to know."
And that when I low man on the totem pole at my framing contracting company who built houses and garages was the shingle humper.
Yeah.
And because I was macho, ego, I'd carry 2 bundles up on my shoulder.
Yeah.
And it's felt like a good idea going up the 20-foot ladder until you had to make that first step transition from the ladder to the roof. And I didn't mess with Texas pitches. You didn't have spaces where you could walk around because we had basements. So we were like 6 pitch was probably the highest. But I would take my shirt off to go home after I get home and shower, and I had blood all over my shoulders from the rubbing.
Grit.
Of the shingles rubbing on my shoulder. I'm like, what am I doing? I think over time, not only do you get wiser, but more is at stake.
Mm-hmm.
So like for me now, I was always a little bit scared to get on roofs, but like at my house for Christmas lights, like I got my daughter, I got my wife, I got people depending on me for my company. Like it's not worth hanging those lights if I'm not the one that should be up there. And I used to roof houses. I'm not equipped to do it anymore mentally. Like I'm scared. And I don't think you should be up there if you're super frightened or learn something,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, fear is a great control. But then, it's also, is this, the right thing to do? Is this what I should be doing? For me, my family has always been that, because I mean, as long as I've been in safety, I will still do stupid stuff, or maybe attempt to. And then my wife or my son will remind me, "Hey, is it safety, Todd? Are you supposed to be doing that?"
Ooh, good accountability measure.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, they hold me accountable.
Yeah.
So, full disclosure, I mean, that's still going on. I mean, we just got back from visiting some friends in Orange Beach. The guy's got a jet ski, and the last day, before we leave, I'm just like, man, I have got to get and I hadn't ridden the jet ski. We'd just been out in the boat and we'd been fishing and hanging around on the beach or whatever. But I mean, I got to get on this jet ski. And so everybody else is upstairs, and I walk down and hop on the jet ski, and I'm, getting after it, and I pass by the boat dock, and the whole group is out there, and they're all waving at me. So I'm like, what are they doing? I roll back by there, and my wife has a life jacket in her hand. She's like,
forgot something.
"Did you forget something?"
Yeah. I'm sending it.
I'm like, okay, don't tell anybody that I did this, but
you just ratted yourself out.
Yeah.
It's real life, man. Those are good look in the mirror moments of like, okay, the wolf look comment, this is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And people are holding me to that standard to walk that talk.
Absolutely.
I love it.
We should all do that for each other.
If you have anything more on heat stress, like this got to be the hottest summer I've ever experienced. And maybe I'm losing my memory and it's this hot every year, but like my heart hurts for the field employees that when I look at the forecast and I see 105 plus for the next 10 days, because I'm in this industry, that's immediately where my heart goes in my brain. Yeah. I'm like, man, I hope they're okay. In any of your conversations or trainings, like what are people doing in this moment now? Is it increased breaks? Is it snack time, hydration? What is it?
Yeah. So, and I'll go back to that heat stress prevention standard that I spoke of earlier. Yeah. I just want to say, one thing about that, and just in general with respect to OSHA standards, people need to be reminded that OSHA standards are minimum standards. This is the law. You shall, I mean, when you read through the standards, everything is, you shall do this. Right?
Yes.
But it's all minimum standards, and they've all been shaved down. Maybe the idea at one time before this, it became a rule, it had all these other components and features to it, and it would be considered more of a best management practice. But by the time a lot of these things become a rule, they've been shaved down and lobbied against and fought for and all this stuff. And so it just becomes this minimum thing, right?
Yeah.
And And I'm only saying that because if you read through what is proposed right now, I would tell you for the most part, especially if speaking for TEXO members, we're already doing all that stuff. We don't need OSHA to tell us how to treat heat stress prevention.
Yeah.
We don't, water, rest, shade. Okay, we're doing that, but we're doing more. And so one of the big things and kind of an easy thing to do, if you can work it into your schedule, is to start the day early.
Oh yeah.
There's some construction, going on right across the street from us, and they've been pouring concrete for the last several weeks. And if I get here early enough in the morning, I mean, you could look across the street and you can tell they've already been there for a couple of hours.
Yeah.
They're starting their shift at 4 a.m, 4:30, something like that. And that is a great way to prevent your guys from working into that hottest part of the day, which is what,
Three to
between
five.
3 and 5.
Yeah.
And so if you can start early, then that's a great, easy thing to do. The other thing that I think some other general contractors can learn from this, which is a cooling box, or I don't know how you want to, what you want to call it, cooling trailer.
Got towels in it and stuff, wet towels.
Well, it's they'll have that, but they also have like a swamp cooler that's built into it. So they'll just build this they'll frame out this trailer. I saw a picture of a general contractor sent me a couple of pictures yesterday of what they had built. And it's big enough to hold 3 picnic tables in there.
Oh, so people like walk in.
Yeah, so it's a walk-in deal. It's got a swamp cooler on the end of it. There's a cooler in there that's got, Gatorade and water and things like that. But there's room for them to go in and actually just take their lunch break.
Yeah.
Go in there and hang out and cool off for, 30 minutes. And to me, that's it's not only a great idea, but it demonstrates to me. I mean, if I were a worker, I would say, man, these guys are really investing in me. I mean, they spent enough. It probably wasn't a whole heck of a lot of money, but it was time to do it. Okay, where are we going to put this thing? Who's going to pay for the swamp cooler? All this stuff, but they made it happen.
That is 20 years ago in construction. It was, you do this for fear of OSHA. I don't want to get fined $10,000 if we don't have that stud horizontally at the slab edge or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Like you said, OSHA's the minimum. That is, I care about you.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it for me. I just care about you. We are nothing without you in the field. So thank you.
Right.
And if you are cost conscious, that is not an A to B thing. What if the additional cost of bringing that cooler and trailer out there provides more productivity and happier people that want to show up to work and feel valued and empowered? How do you measure that cost savings?
Yeah.
Versus they don't care about me, I'm going to go as slow as possible. Like, what is it costing you truly? It's not A to B.
Well, and here's the other thing. All these guys talk. And
big time.
And if you're having trouble finding people to come work for you, one of the great attractions is to operate a safe job site and to offer things like a cooling trailer. These guys talk. I mean, you got one project and one contractor that, they don't do all this, outside of the box thinking and extra safety measures like a cooling trailer. You got somebody like that doesn't do any of that, and then you have somebody else over here and they're talking, hey, you need to come to work over here. I mean, man, they give us cooling towels. We've got this cooling trailer that we sit in and have lunch, and they want us to come home, come to work early so that we can go home early and avoid the heat. I mean, it could be the differentiator.
Yeah.
I don't know if I said that right.
Boom.
Yeah. Between, going to work for this guy or going to work for this guy.
Todd's out here preaching, people. Come on now. I had to write down a little timestamp there because you just went on one. And how many people are complaining about that struggle? Well, what are you doing about it beyond complaining?
Right.
There's an action item that How many birds with one stone does that kill?
Yeah,
Taking care of your people, safety, empowerment, recruiting. That sounds cool.
and it's relatively new. I mean, it's a new thing to talk about because you're talking about 20 years ago. That didn't happen. 20 years ago was
Pull off in your truck.
yeah. Hey, you chose to work in Texas.
Yeah,
This is not my problem.
that's right.
We just didn't have those conversations. But now, it's just a different mindset.
Yeah, not to squirrel too much, but our mutual friend and connection, Keon Zandy, he's starting to do this presentation where he gets you hyped up about construction. All right, it's awesome. Make money, right? But this is where you got to go to the bathroom. This is where you eat. These are your job site conditions each day. And he like jukes you on it. And it's true. Like, we're promoting this as an awesome industry, but what are we doing on that back end to take care of our people, which is kind of a repeat with Steve Doyle from last week. But safety is just another element to that, and a crucial element.
Yeah, and for a construction company, it's a way to demonstrate to your employees and to your potential candidates how you feel about them and how important safety is.
So, in addition to heat stress, what else is happening in our industry? What are some hot button topics?
Oh, the heat stress is the biggest thing.
Paramount.
There's also an emphasis program on trenching and excavation.
Okay.
I actually, and I don't post a whole lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but I ran across a video the other day. I don't know where this occurred, but there was a worker in a trench and he was doing something with a big pipe down, and there was a major slough off of dirt that came down and fell on top of him. They had no bracing. They had no trench box down there, nothing to protect this guy. And I mean, he was, unfortunately, he was gone.
Wow.
I mean, most people they're not aware of how much a yard of dirt weighs. I mean, it does vary depending on how much water is in the soil, but I mean, it could be as much as 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. So, when that falls on you, you're not going to be able to just rise out of it.
Interesting. I focus so much on above
Mhm.
because of my background. I don't think much about below.
Yeah. And it's extremely common. I mean, every project you're going to have to dig a hole somewhere and put something underground. And so there is a big emphasis on that. I had an OSHA compliance officer tell me one time, I was just asking me how, I know you can't go on this job site. If you're just driving by, you can't just knock on the door and go, "Hey, I want to walk your site." And there's a procedure for that they have to follow. But there's one telling. What he told me was, he says, "Well, if I'm looking for trenching and excavation, and I drive by, and if I'm looking kind of over the plane of the dirt, and I see white hard hats, and that's all I can see is maybe the top of a hard hat, maybe 2 or 3 of them. Okay, I know that they're working more than 5 feet, in a trench, and that's the cutoff. So time to go visit these people."
Oh, there's
So
my permission slip. Just got signed.
Permission slip. Yep.
Yeah.
Now I can knock on the door and say, "Hey, I observed an immediate hazard. This is imminent danger.
There's nothing you could do about it.
Yeah.
I'm coming.
Here, let me go take a look."
Yeah.
So, and that's not to say that they, I mean, you can see white hard hats, and maybe they do have the correct, maybe they do have a trench box in there, but you can't see that until you walk up on it. But that, that's just an example of an emphasis program. Heat stress, again, there's an emphasis program on that as well. But those are probably the 2 major trends that are going on.
Yeah.
You still see fall protection issues. I mean, these things just unfortunately don't go away. It's, year after year, it's slips, trips, and falls. It's fall protection issues. And then, of course, if you're in Texas and, you're going to work in July to September, it's going to be heat stress.
I don't want to put you on the spot too much on this, but like, so I'm a fall protection guy, but I'm not well versed in this. But some of those yo-yos have that. Is it lead line protection? Leading edge,
leading edge protection,
and that is. So why do they even sell some that don't have that? And that's because that line can rub and corrode up against the corner of the slab edge and then cut that thing or fray it.
Yeah, it doesn't take much. If it doesn't have that leading edge fabric or material that prevents it, I mean, some of the material, some of the construction material can cut a lanyard like a razor. So if you don't have that on there, then yeah. And so why wouldn't they just make everything with that material? And it just comes down to money.
Yeah,
it just comes down to cost. And especially if I'm going to buy 25 of them, and then that material is $100 more. Well, if we don't need it, then just tell these guys that they need to wear leading edge, and then the other. It's not the right application for the others.
And, ignorance too. Like I wouldn't have known without like people telling me about it. And I have a mentor that says, don't walk over dollars to save pennies, especially when it's at the risk of your people's safety. So if a leading edge fabric is increased cost, but if something goes wrong, it saves them. Yeah, we're buying it.
Yeah.
And I've had to have conversations with crews like, stop showing up and borrowing each other's stuff. And if you're going to do that, do a full inspection. I'm telling you, I'm willing to spend the money. Like, don't do that. Use your own. Have it name tagged. Inspect it every day. Bring your own harness. Like, I want you using your stuff. So you're in control of it. Like,
I only wish everybody thought that way, and it's just not true.
Yeah.
There are still some penny pinchers out there that are just saying, hey, if I don't have to spend that money on that, then I'm not going to do it. And, it's the wrong way to look at it, but because if something does, happen, it's going to cost you a hell of a lot more than $100.
Yeah. Your peace of mind.
Yeah.
Did you do everything you could have,
And, but that kind of leads to another thing about fall protection is having a competent person on site to understand what fall protection applications are required or that you need. Because it's not just like leading edge material, for example. There are lanyards that are designed for you to tie back. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Like you can just wrap it around a pipe or wrap it around a beam, and the carabiner and the attachments are flat and they're designed to be tied back. But then there are a lot of them that aren't. And so, that's a common thing that you see out in the field is people tying back their lanyards because they can't find an adequate anchor point.
Oh yeah.
So I'll just tie this lanyard back. And if it's not designed to be tied back, then that's a problem.
Yeah, it's scary, man. It's those horizontal lifelines. If they're not taut and there's a lot of sag in that thing,
yeah,
guy could fall a few floors before that activates when all of his weight's on it. You know?
There's a lot to it. There really is. There's just so much to it, and again, if you don't have a competent person that is able to help you make those decisions and hold you accountable on your equipment inspections and things like that, then you're cheating.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing some wisdom, some advice. I think there's a lot of takeaways in this. As we spin out of this, I'll ask you, how is the empty nesting going? Because I know that's a recent adventure.
Yeah. So, thanks for asking. Yeah. So my wife of 28 years as of next month, Angela, we have one son, Will, and he graduated from North Texas last May. God, it's weird to say. It's been over a year. But he graduated from North Texas with a degree in digital print journal. I've forgotten exactly. Digital and print journalism, I think is what it is. And his whole intention was to get into sports journalism, and he rolled right into it 1 month after he graduated. So, matter of fact, he's got 3 gigs.
Yeah.
And they're all sports related, and he's just loving it. And so, yeah, to the empty nest thing, he is out on his own, got his own apartment, and so we're on our own too. But it's going great. So we were married. We were actually married 5 years before Will was born. So we always say we know what it's like to just be married. I have a lot of friends that got married and they had their first kid.
Got to work at it, man.
9 months later or whatever. Yeah. So and so you kind of didn't get to really know how it is to be married to someone without having this kid.
Yeah.
And so we were able to kind of draw from that. It's been great. Will is still close, and so I get to kind of pick and choose. Like, I think it's be good for us to just be by ourselves tonight. And then when I want him to come over and watch a Cowboy game, then hey, he's just a few miles down the road, and here he comes. So it's great. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Well, and shout out to Will. Your dad talks so highly of you and is so pumped up for what you're doing out there. And I love hearing about how you infill or used to or still does with what you see in the info button when you click on a sports channel. So like I'm telling you firsthand, I get to hear your updates through your dad, and he loves you and he's super proud of you. So
I'm absolutely super proud of him. Thanks.
Yeah,
Appreciate
of course.
that, Kevin.
So again, TEXO Association, it's a great association, not just for safety, but a whole bunch of other offerings. Go above OSHA standards, care about your people, show them that you care, and get involved in the industry, join a committee, hear what other members of the industry are doing, and let's just keep our people safe out there.
Amen.
All right. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.